Good morning. I'm going to read to you today the first yama, which is called Ahimsa. This is how it's written in Sanskrit. For each yama and niyama, there's a short poem written by the author's friend. Storms rage about me. I calm my heart and send out ribbons of peace. Peace. Ahimsa is non-violence. In the Karate Kid movies, Mr. Miyagi at first appears to be a silly, rather harmless little old man to 17-year-old Daniel. Mr. Miyagi is humble and unpretentious. He sits around for hours trying to catch flies with chopsticks, tends his bonsai trees, and doesn't even seem to bat an eye when provoked. But as the movie progresses and bullies threaten both Daniel and Mr. Miyagi springs into defensive action. Daniel's eyes are open to the incredible ability of this old man who skillfully takes on a team of karate opponents larger and younger than he is. From that point on, Mr. Miyagi becomes Daniel's mentor in the art of skillful defense, true friendship, and the art of living. Nonviolence may appear to us like Mr. Miyagi first appeared to Daniel. It can look so passive and unimportant that we can easily ignore its presence and the subtleties of its power, wondering what the fuss is all about. And yet, in Eastern thought, nonviolence is so valued that it stands at the very core and foundation of all yoga philosophy and practice. It is as if the yogis are saying that if we don't ground our lives and actions in nonviolence, everything else we attempt will be precarious. All of our achievements and successes, hopes and joys stand on faulty ground if they do not stand on the foundation built by nonviolence. Killing and doing physical harm are grosser forms of violence that are easily seen and understood. However, nonviolence has many subtle implications as well. When we feel hurried, afraid, powerless, out of balance, and harsh with ourselves, we may find ourselves speaking words of unkindness or even exploding with a violent outburst. As our awareness of these nuances grow, we learn that our ability to be nonviolent to others is directly related to our ability to be nonviolent with ourselves. Our inner strength and character determine our ability to be a person of peace at home and in the world. In the Karate Kid movies, Daniel did not go to karate school to study. Instead, he became skilled at karate by learning how to move through the daily chores of waxing cars, sanding wood, and painting fences. In much the same way, we grow our capacity to be nonviolent by learning how to move through the everyday challenges of life and by addressing the things that precipitate our tendencies toward violence. Ahimsa, or nonviolence, literally to do no harm, calls forth from us our most brilliant and best self. Our capacity to be nonviolent depends on our proactive practice of courage, balance, love of self, and compassion for others. Finding our courage. We only have to look around us to see that fear abounds. It abounds in cowardly faces that turn away, in violent attacks, in walls of protection, in bins of possessions, in numerous unkind words and gestures. In an abundant world, hoarders take more than their share, leaving others lacking. Wars are started and fought to seize the goods and keep the power. All around the world, children's innocence is destroyed by abuse and horror. If we look closely, we can trace all of these acts of greed, control, and insecurity back to their root: fear. Fear creates violence. If we are to begin to address these fears, we need to know the difference between the fears that keep us alive and the fears that keep us from living. The first kind of fear is instinctual and built in us for survival. The second kind of fear is fear of the unfamiliar. The unfamiliar can become an abundant place for our exploration once we realize this fear lives only in our imagination. It's only our minds that have created the turmoil in our gut and kept us hostage to the possibility of our own lives. An example of that fear that lives only in the imagination might be skydiving. For me, the thought of jumping out of a plane at high altitude and remembering to open my parachute somewhere along the way sends cold shivers down my spine and giant rumblings of fear in my gut. All of this is happening in my body in this very moment, and yet I've never experienced this activity. For me to walk into this fear, I would first imagine a different scenario for myself, something that looks like adventure and fun, something where I'm competent and collected as I jump from heaven to earth. And then, where I really just step into my courage, I would call a pilot. Seeking out people and experiences we would normally avoid provides a fertile place to learn new things about ourselves and about life. Even those we might call enemies have much to teach us. People we have previously avoided will open up new ways of thinking and will give us pieces of ourselves. As we walk into our fears with both people and experiences, we will find that our sense of self has grown. Our view has expanded, the world suddenly looks like a bigger place, and we are more competent to navigate in it. As we expand ourselves into these new places, our minds and hearts grow more open, and we have less need to be violent. Thus, to create a life and a world free of violence is first and foremost to find our own courage. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to be afraid without being paralyzed. Courage is found by facing our fears, the small ones, the fat ones, the embarrassing ones, and the really big, scary ones, too. To live the fullness that our own life is inviting us into, we often have to let ourselves be afraid and do it anyway. If we keep ourselves safe, how will our courage grow? One of the reasons for Gandhi's unmatched power was that he continued to stay with life. He didn't run when life got too confusing or difficult. He stayed and learned from the moment, and in the process, he became a skillful leader no one could match and a force that no one could stop. For Gandhi, fear became a stimulus to develop his courage. I'll stop there for today. I'll continue tomorrow with more Ahimsa, nonviolence. Have a great day, guys. Love you.